All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're heading into some pretty wild territory, folks.
Yeah, we're talking secret space programs
Alien encounters.
and a whole cosmic, well, you could call it a drama, playing out kind of right under our noses.
Right. And to try and make sense of all this, we're focusing on the testimony of Corey Goode, who says he was actually in these clandestine programs.
Yeah, a good story is, well, it's pretty detailed. It really lays out this hidden world operating just beyond, I guess you could say, our normal perception. And, his accounts, they offer a pretty interesting fascinating glimpse into this potential reality of secret space programs.
Yeah. Okay, so to be clear, we're talking Solar Warden.
The Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate.
Encounters with beings like the Blue Avians. I mean, some of this sounds like it's straight out of a movie, right?
Yeah, it does.
So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, I think to really get a handle on Goode's claims, we got to look back to the historical roots of these supposed programs. We got to start with early research into anti-gravity tech. And, this might surprise you, the role of Nazi Germany.
Nazis and anti-gravity. Now that's something I got to hear more about.
Right. So it all begins with a scientist named Dr. Victor Schauberger.
Okay.
Now, he was studying something called anti-gravity vortexes in water back in the early 1900s.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really fascinated by how things moved in, like spinning water, particularly fish and eggs.
Eggs? What do eggs have to do with anti-gravity?
Well, that's what's so interesting. Schauberger, he noticed that when you put an egg in, like a vortex of water, the shape of the egg, it kind of contributes to creating a force that, get this, can work against gravity.
No way.
He called this a torsion field, and he thought it was super important for understanding how to make things levitate.
So he's basically saying the shape of an object can affect how it interacts with gravity. That's pretty crazy for the early 1900s.
Oh, absolutely. Schauberger's work, it was totally groundbreaking. And, well, it caught the attention of the Nazis. They were, always looking for any kind of edge, any tech they could use.
Right. Yeah. Knowing the Nazis, how they liked to acquire things, shall we say. I can imagine what happened next.
Yeah, you got it. Schauberger, he was basically forced to work for them. Had to apply his research to their goal of making, well, advanced aircraft.
So we're talking about the Nazi flying discs, right? Those were real.
Yeah.
And they came from Schauberger's research.
Well, there's no, definitive proof. But Goode says that Schauberger's work on torsion fields and this vortex tech, it probably played a big part in, how the Nazis designed those unconventional aircraft.
That's incredible. It really makes you think, how far did the Nazis actually get with their tech?
Right. And, they weren't just interested in the practical stuff like aircraft. They were into some pretty out there things, too, like space travel and even time travel.
Right. Which brings us to the Vril Society. That was the secret society, right, that said they were getting messages from aliens.
Exactly. They popped up in the late 1800s, and they were convinced they were talking to beings from another star system. Specifically, they described them as Nordic-looking.
So, the classic blonde hair, blue eyes aliens.
Yep, that's the image. Now, the Vril Society, they were more interested in the spiritual side of things, the knowledge these beings supposedly had. They weren't like the Nazis who were, all about power and military stuff.
But I'm guessing those two worldviews didn't exactly get along for too long.
Yeah, you're right. The Nazis, they saw what the Vril Society was doing, this contact with aliens, the tech they were exploring. They realized the potential. So what did they do? They basically took over the group, infiltrated it, took control.
So typical Nazis, using whatever they could get their hands on to advance their own plans. But did they actually get anywhere with space travel using this tech?
According to Goode, yeah, they did. He talks about how the Nazis, through some shady alliances with, get this, reptilian beings.
Wait, hold on. Reptilian beings.
Yeah, called the Draco.
Okay, now we're going full sci-fi here.
I know, right?
So the Nazis got help from these reptilians to get off Earth.
Oh.
What did they offer in return?
Well, Goode says they basically offered resources, tech, and a foothold on Earth. This supposed alliance, it let the Nazis really expand their space program. They even tried to set up a base on Mars.
A Nazi base on Mars? That's crazy. But didn't they have a bunch of problems? I mean, starting a base on another planet, that's got to be tough.
Oh, it was. Goode talks about how the Nazis, they just weren't ready for how harsh Mars is. Their tech wasn't good enough, and the planet's just brutal. Their early attempts, well, let's just say they had some serious setbacks.
So even though they wanted to get out there, they weren't quite prepared for the reality of it all?
Right.
But wait, their story didn't end with World War II, did it?
Nope. It takes a really interesting turn with something called Operation High Jump. That was an American expedition down to Antarctica, led by Admiral Richard Byrd back in 1947.
Operation High Jump. Wasn't that supposed to be like a science trip? What's that got to do with the Nazis and their space program?
Well, according to Good, it was way more than just science. He says the Nazis, they tipped off the U.S. government about some crazy stuff down there in Antarctica. Ancient ruins, massive caverns under the ice, and get this, the presence of the Draco.
So the Nazis basically told the Americans, hey, there's something huge GE down here, bigger than you think. What were they hoping to get out of that?
Well, Good says they knew their own resources were limited, so they figured, why not use the U.S.? They had the industry, the tech. The Nazis saw it as a way to, keep their space program going, even if it meant sort of teaming up with their former enemy.
So instead of just fighting, they were playing a longer game, using like diplomacy and collaboration to get what they wanted. Fascinating.
And that collaboration, Good says, is how the secret space program, as we know it today, got started. He even claims he flew under the ice in Antarctica himself and saw these huge domed caverns.
Wow, so we're talking about a whole hidden world, like a secret civilization right under our noses.
Exactly.
But how did this whole U.S. Nazi scientist team up actually work?
Well, it started with Project Paperclip. You probably heard of it. After World War II, the U.S. brought a lot of those Nazi scientists over.
Yeah, Project Paperclip. It was pretty controversial, right? People said the U.S. was basically protecting war criminals just to get their knowledge.
Yeah, it was a morally complicated thing for sure. But Good says these scientists, they were crucial for connecting the U.S. government with what was left of the Nazi space program. They set up meetings, negotiations, and it all led to a treaty in 1955.
So former enemies became partners in this secret space thing. What was in this treaty?
Well, the exact details are, top secret, obviously. But Good claims it basically let the Nazi group keep going with their space program. And they had the backing of the U.S. resources, everything. This led to a huge influx of top scientists and engineers from all over the world. They were all pulled into these clandestine operations.
How many people are we talking? To make a whole secret space program, that's got to be a lot of people.
Good thinks it was something like 55 to 60 million people. And think about it. A lot of those people probably had families, loved ones, who knew what was going on. So the number of people affected by this secret world, it's probably huge.
That's mind-blowing. It means a big chunk of humanity might be out there in space right now, and we have no idea.
Right. And that brings us to, I think, one of the most famous parts of Good's story. Solar Warden.
Solar Warden. That's the name he gives to the secret space program that's supposed to protect our solar system, right?
Exactly. He describes it as this massive fleet of, advanced spaceships, carriers, huge ones, even bigger than some of the stuff people like William Tompkins talked about. And Tompkins claimed he designed spacecraft for these programs. We're not talking tiny fighters here. We're talking huge vessels, tech way beyond anything we know about.
Okay, now this is getting really hard to imagine. If this Solar Warden thing is real, what are they protecting us from?
That is the big question. And Good's testimony, well, it really dives into that. It takes us to some of the more controversial, maybe even disturbing parts of his story. And we'll get into all that after a quick break.
So we've got this massive, secret space program, Solar Warden, protecting us from, well, who knows what. I'm definitely curious to find out more about what they're up against.
Yeah, it's a wild thought, isn't it? And to understand those threats, we need to look at another big player in Good's story. The Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, the ICC.
The ICC. They're not exactly the good guys, right?
Yeah.
What I remember.
Yeah, no, not really. They're a powerful force, that's for sure. Good describes them as, well, basically the most powerful group within the whole secret space program. They control the tech, the development, and they have influence over a crazy number of alien civilizations.
How many are we talking here?
Over 900. According to Good.
It's 900. That's a lot of aliens to be doing business with. What kind of business are we talking about? What does ICC get out of all this?
It all comes down to trade. The ICC, they're like the middlemen. They handle the exchange of tech, resources between Earth and these other civilizations. They've got these massive operations on Mars, mining, industry, all that. They make advanced tech and trade it to the aliens.
So Earth is like a player in this galactic marketplace.
Yeah, you could say that.
But if the ICC is running the show, what does that mean for us, regular humans, I mean? Are we getting anything out of this deal?
That's a question Good really struggles with, He says humanity's role in all this, it's complicated and not always good. Actually, it brings us to one of the most, disturbing parts of his whole story, the interstellar slave trade.
The slave trade. Wait, so we're not just talking about, like, swapping gadgets and stuff. You're saying humans are being traded.
Yeah, that's what Good claims. He says humans are taken, abducted, and traded to different alien civilizations in exchange for tech, biological samples, resources.
That's awful. It's hard to even imagine. But hold on. If Solar Warden's supposed to be protecting us, why aren't they swapping this?
Well, Good's explanation, it gets pretty complex. He says there are different groups, factions, within the secret space program, each with their own goals. Solar Warden, he says they focus on defending us from, like, outside threats, but they can't really interfere with what the ICC is doing.
So there's like an internal power struggle going on up in space.
Something like that. But if humans are being used like this, exploited, who's looking out for us?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Good introduces another group, the Sphere Being Alliance. He says they've been intervening in a subtle way to help us through this.
To Sphere Being Alliance, those are the beings connected to the giant spheres that people have seen, right, in our solar system.
Right, the huge ones.
Yeah.
People have taken pictures with satellites like SOHO, and Good saying these spheres, they're not just objects, they're beings, sentient beings. And they're part of this alliance with, get this, 5 different alien races.
Sentient spheres. Okay, now I'm really having trouble picturing this. But if they're good, like Good says, why not just, step in and fix everything? Why all the secrecy?
Good says it's all about non-interference. He claims they follow these cosmic laws, and those laws say they can't directly get involved in how a civilization develops. They can kind of nudge us in the right direction, but we got to make our own choices.
So they're like cosmic babysitters who can't just come in and clean up all our messes.
Yeah, something like that. They want us to, reach a higher level of consciousness, but we got to do the work ourselves.
Okay, that brings up another question. What exactly is this higher level of consciousness that Good's always talking about?
Well, he says human consciousness is evolving, that we can reach this state of awareness that's way beyond anything we can imagine right now. He thinks the Sphere Being Alliance is here to help us unlock that potential. But it's a process, and it means we got to confront our limits, make choices that lead to a more compassionate way of being.
So it's not just about building better spaceships, it's about changing how we think, how we are. Sounds like a pretty big change. But how does this connect to the slave trade thing? If the Sphere Being Alliance is so advanced, why let that happen at all?
That's a tough one. And Good doesn't give an easy answer. He says the Alliance has to work within certain rules. There's the balance of power out there in the cosmos, and they have to be careful. He also says the ICC, they're really dug in. They're part of a system that's been around for a long time.
So it's not as simple as just shutting down one bad group. We're talking about a whole system, a way of thinking that needs to change. And not just for humans, maybe for these other aliens who are involved in the slave trade too.
Yeah, it's a big challenge to wrap your head around. But Good saying real change has to start with us. We have to evolve to a point where we just don't accept this kind of exploitation anymore.
Like we have to get past the whole mindset that makes this stuff possible in the first place. Stop seeing ourselves as, things to be bought and sold. We got to embrace a more connected, compassionate way of being.
Exactly. And, Good's not all doom and gloom. He thinks a mass awakening is possible, like a collective shift in consciousness that could put humanity on a much better path.
A mass awakening sounds kind of utopian, doesn't it? But how would that even happen?
Well, he believes it's happening right now. It's being driven by these cosmic energies that are like bathing the planet. And he says the Sphere Being Alliance, they're helping to kind of buffer those energies so they don't overwhelm us.
Right.
But they're also helping us to, integrate them, use them to grow spiritually.
So, we're getting a cosmic upgrade, and the spheres are making sure we don't fry our circuits.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're helping us get used to these powerful energies. And Good says these energies, they're changing our consciousness.
But if they're so powerful, why don't we see more evidence of this awakening? Why is the world still so messed up?
Well, Good says it's a slow process. It's happening on different levels,
Yeah.
in subtle ways. He also says there are forces out there, some human, some alien, that are fighting against this change. They want to keep things the way they are.
So it's like a tug of war, a cosmic one. And we're stuck in the middle.
Yeah, kind of like that. It's a battle between the old ways, fear, control, and this new way of being. More open, more heart-centered.
And the Sphere Being Alliance, they're on our side in this fight.
He thinks so. He says they're guiding us, but in the end, it's up to us to choose what path we want to take.
So choice is everything. We decide our own fate, individually and as a species. But if these higher levels of consciousness are real, what do they actually look like? What kind of future could we make if we, embrace this change?
That's where Good's story gets really exciting, I think. He talks about a future where humanity breaks free of its limits. We become part of this huge galactic community, sharing our, I don't know, our unique perspective with other civilizations.
A future where we're not slaves, not victims, but partners. Co-creating this, amazing connected cosmos. That's a pretty awesome vision. But how do we get there? What do we have to do?
Good talks about his own journey. He says it's about facing our dark side, healing our wounds, cultivating practices that lead to compassion, forgiveness, self-awareness, things like meditation, being mindful, connecting with nature. And he says it's important to deal with our past traumas, let go of the baggage we carry.
So it's inner work, looking inside ourselves, choosing a better way to be.
Exactly. He's saying real change has to happen on both levels. We got to improve our tech, and we got to evolve our consciousness. And he thinks the two are connected, deeply connected.
So it's not just about reaching for the stars out there. It's about reaching inside ourselves, too, finding the potential we all have. It's about aligning, I guess you could say, our inner world and the outer world, creating a reality that matches our best hopes.
And, Good doesn't just talk about the future. He talks about the past, too. He brings up these people who, well, it seems like they had advanced knowledge, technology, way before the modern secret space program even existed.
You're talking about the Samjasi, right? The beings who supposedly visited people in the early 1900s, taught them spiritual stuff, showed off crazy tech.
Yep, the Samjasi. They're a fascinating piece of the puzzle. Good even thinks Maria Orsic, she was part of the Vril Society, might have been one of them.
So maybe these beings have been interacting with us for a lot longer than we think, subtly guiding us, maybe even leading us towards this awakening Good talks about.
It's a cool thought, isn't it? And it makes you wonder about our history, the hidden forces that shaped our civilization.
Yeah. And it shows that we might not be as alone as we think. That there could be others out there, some good, some maybe not so good, who are part of our story playing roles we don't even know about.
Exactly. Which brings us to another interesting part of Good's story, something that gets into the weirder side of consciousness. He talks about entity attachments.
Entity attachments. That sounds kind of spooky. What are we talking about here?
Good says they're like energetic beings that can attach to people. They usually latch on to unresolved trauma, emotional weaknesses, things like that.
So old pain can attract bad energy.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. And Good says these entities, they feed off our energy, specifically the bad vibes, the fear, anger, that kind of stuff. They use it to survive. And when they do that, they make those negative emotions even stronger. And that makes us easier to manipulate.
So they're like energy vampires. But why would they do that? What's the point?
This is where Good's story goes deep. He says these entity attachments, they're often used as tools by negative forces. Could be human, could be alien. And they use them to influence us, keep us fighting with each other, keep us scared.
So it's not just about messing with one person, it's about controlling all of humanity.
Yeah, that's the idea. Good says these negative forces, they benefit from keeping us weak, divided, makes us easier to control, to exploit.
But if the Sphere Being Alliance knows about this, why aren't they doing more to help us?
It's that non-interference thing again. Good says they have limits, they can offer guidance, but ultimately, it's on us to decide if we want to stay trapped in these cycles of negativity or break free.
So they're showing us the way out, but we gotta take the steps ourselves.
Exactly. Good says the key is to become aware of these influences, heal ourselves, and raise our vibrations so high that those negative entities can't latch on anymore.
So it's about personal power, taking control of our own energy, our emotions, our destiny. But how do we actually do that? It sounds pretty abstract.
Good talks about different things we can do: meditation, mindfulness, practicing forgiveness, connecting with nature. He also says it's important to face our shadows, work through the tough stuff from the past, let go of the emotional baggage.
So it's about inner work, facing our own darkness, choosing a better frequency, realizing we have the power to break free from this manipulation.
And it's not just about individual change. Good says that when enough people wake up to this, when they start doing this inner work, it creates a ripple effect. It raises the consciousness of everyone.
So there's a collective aspect to this, too. We're all connected, and our individual choices affect the whole.
Exactly. Good believes that if enough people wake up, it could create a massive shift. It could change everything for the better, push humanity onto a more positive timeline.
Okay, let's talk about that timeline. Good describes some pretty amazing possibilities. A mass awakening, huge tech advancements, contact with good aliens, even humanity becoming part of some kind of galactic community. Is this all just fantasy, or could this actually happen?
Well, think about it this way. We're always creating our reality through our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions. If we focus on fear, lack, separation, that we'll get. But if we choose love, abundance, connection, that opens up a whole different set of possibilities.
So it's about choosing a higher frequency, a better way of being, realizing that we're not just watching this cosmic show, we're part of it.
Exactly. And good story, whether you believe every detail or not, it reminds us that we have the power to create our own future, individually and together.
It's like he's saying, wake up, look around. There's so much more going on than you think. You have a role to play.
And maybe, just maybe, if we become aware of all this, if we choose love, forgiveness, conscious evolution, maybe we can help create a future where humanity finally takes its place among the stars.
A future where we're not slaves, but partners, sharing our gifts with this incredible, interconnected galactic community.
Now, that's a future worth working for. But before we get too carried away with all the cosmic stuff, let's bring it back down to Earth for a minute. Let's look at some of the more controversial parts of Good's story, like these entity attachments and how they might be affecting us.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes you wonder how much of our world is shaped by things we're not even aware of.
All right, we're back. And I got to say, this whole entity attachment thing, it's really got me thinking. It's kind of creepy to think there might be these, like, unseen things messing with our heads, you know? Yeah, it definitely makes you question what's really going on, right? I mean, it challenges how we normally think about reality. But if we, like, open our minds a little, consider that consciousness might go beyond the physical body, then, well, maybe it's not so crazy to think there are energetic beings out there that can, I don't know, interact with our own energy.
Okay, I can see that. But how do these attachments actually work? What are they trying to do by latching onto us?
Well, Good says they basically feed off our energy, especially the lower vibes, you know, fear, anger, trauma, all that. It's like they're siphoning it off to keep themselves going. And when they do that, it makes those negative emotions even stronger in us, which makes us easier to control, like puppets.
So they're like parasites feeding off our bad vibes, but why? What's the point of doing that?
Good's explanation gets pretty intense here. He says these entities, they're often used as tools by negative forces. Could be humans, could be aliens. And the goal is to influence us, keep us in this state of, like, fear and division.
So it's not just about messing with one person, it's about messing with all of humanity.
Yeah, pretty much. Good says these negative forces, they want us to be weak, to fight amongst ourselves. It makes us easier to control, to use.
But if the Sphere Being Alliance knows about this, why not, just step in and stop it?
It's that non-interference thing again. They have rules, boundaries, they can guide, offer support, but we got to make the choice to break free ourselves.
So it's like they're showing us the exit, but we have to actually get up and walk through it.
Exactly. And Good's saying the way to do that is to become aware of these influences, heal ourselves, and raise our vibration. Get to a point where these negative things just can't affect us anymore.
So it's about personal power, taking back control of our energy, our emotions, our lives. But how do we actually do that? It sounds kind of vague.
Good talks about a bunch of practices: meditation, mindfulness, forgiveness, spending time in nature. I mean, he really emphasizes facing our shadows, working through the tough stuff from our past, letting go of all that emotional baggage.
So it's inner work. It's about looking inside, confronting the dark stuff, and choosing a higher path, choosing a better frequency, realizing we have the power to break free.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about each of us doing this alone. Good says when enough people start waking up to this, when they start doing this inner work, it creates a ripple effect. It lifts everyone up.
So there's a collective aspect to this too. We're all connected, and what we do individually affects the whole.
That's it. He believes that if enough people wake up, we can change the course of history, shift to a much brighter timeline for humanity.
A brighter timeline, huh? Gideon talks about some pretty amazing stuff that could happen. A mass awakening, crazy tech advancements, meeting good aliens, even joining some kind of galactic community. Is this all just like wishful thinking, or is there any chance this could actually happen?
Well, I think it comes down to this. We are creating our reality all the time, through our thoughts, beliefs, actions. If we're focused on fear, lack, separation, then yeah, we're probably going to get more of that. But if we choose love, abundance, connection, that opens up a whole different world of possibilities.
So it's about choosing a higher frequency, choosing a better way to be, realizing that we're not just bystanders in all this, we're active participants. We have the power to shape what happens next.
Absolutely. And good story, even if you take it as just a story, it's a powerful reminder of that. We have the power to create our own destiny, both individually and as a species.
It's like a call to action, to wake up, to see the bigger picture, to step into our power, to create a future that reflects our highest potential.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be sharing that future, maybe even a cup of cosmic tea with those blue avians.
Now that's a thought. Well, folks, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some things to think about, maybe spark your curiosity to explore what might be possible. And remember, the future is out there waiting to be created, but it all starts with us right here, right now.